nothing but the truth. Hello, I'm Raj Chengapa of India Today, and welcome to another episode of Nothing But the Truth. Bihar has just delivered one of the biggest political earthquakes in recent times. It was a stunning landslide victory for the National Democratic Alliance, or NDA, in a state where just a few months ago the alliance looked divided, directionless, and dangerously close to losing the plot. So what changed? How did a coalition struggling with seat-sharing fights, leadership doubts, and organizational drift transform almost overnight into a ruthless election machine that crushed the opposition? Today, we take you into what is called the inside story of the NDA War Room that had ran really a midnight strategy session almost daily, used spreadsheets and real-time booth intelligence, including coordinating something like 92,000 booth agents with almost military-like precision. This wasn't just an election campaign, it was a no-gaps operation, disciplined, data-driven, and relentlessly focused on execution, and that was the hallmark of what we would call a ruthlessly efficient poll machine that the NDA had evolved. Today, I'm glad to welcome poll expert Amitabh Tiwari, who will decode what the numbers reveal, the voter shifts, caste dynamics, and the decisive rise of women voters. Welcome, Amitabh Tiwari, to this show. And I have my Patna colleague, also an Amitabh, but Amitabh Srivastava, who has penned this week's India Today cover story on Bihar and will pull back the curtain on behind-the-scenes machinery, the strategy, the micromanagement, and of course the political engineering that delivered this historic win. This is, in many respects, the inside story of how the NDA stunned Bihar and rewrote the rules of campaigning and made electoral history. So, Amitabh Tiwari, let me start with you. When you look at the numbers alone, how did the NDA pull off such a dramatic leap to 202 seats? Was it the consolidation of the turnout or vote splitting on the other side? What were the key key reasons for it?
Well, essentially, whenever we analyzed Bihar, Raj sir, we took 2020 as the base where the vote difference between the two alliances was 12,000 votes.
Now, and 0.03% or something like that, right?
0.03.
Yes.
But at that point of time, LJP and Rashtriya Lok Manch were out of NDA and VIP was in NDA, which switched sides to Mahagathbandhan this time. So if you adjust the vote shares and transfer all votes of LJP and RLM to NDA and remove the votes of VIP, putting it to Mahagathbandhan, then the numbers would have been 169 for NDA. So the base itself was never 125, 110. The base was 169 and the balance to Mahagathbandhan. That's number one. Number two, even from that base had a 4% vote share lead for NDA, around 44% for NDA, including LJP and RLM, and around 39% for Mahagathbandhan, including VIP. So there was a 5% lead. Even from this position, the NDA gained 2.5%, largely from others, and also somewhat 1.5% from Mahagathbandhan. So the NDA gained 2.5%, the Mahagathbandhan lost 1.5%. So it added another 4% swing in favor of the NDA. So they were already sitting at 169, and then you have a 4% swing in your favor. That's what perhaps led to this mammoth landslide, you can say, almost equal to the 2010 number. Another point is the women turnout increase. Now, we've discussed earlier also that on seats where the women turnout is more than males, the NDA or especially the JDU had a very high strike rate in the past, in all three elections, even with Mahagathbandhan when they fought in 2015. This time the female turnout was more than 9% higher than men, 8.8%. And for the first time in Bihar's history, even the absolute votes cast by women were higher than men. So earlier, because the proportion itself is lower, 47% women and around 53% males, even a higher 6-7% turnout by females would result in the total number of votes cast by male being higher than females. But this
Right,
time, the total number of votes cast by females is 4.34 lakhs higher than men. That is around 1800 votes per constituency more women voted than men across, if you take an average.
right.
Now, almost 129 seats had a female turnout more than men, or where women outvoted men. On that, the strike rate of NDA is 84%.
Wow.
Even amongst the seats where the male turnout was higher, when the Mahagathbandhan was leading in 2020. So in 2020, the NDA was leading in higher female turnout seats. The Mahagathbandhan was leading in higher male turnout seats. But even where this time the male turnout is higher, because of that swing which we were discussing, even in these category seats also, the NDA was ahead around 80 to 83%. A significant anti-Yadav consolidation is visible, fear of return of Jungle Raj, and also I would say subaltern Hindutva, especially in North Bihar, largely phase 2, also saw significant anti-consolidation when people saw large queues and there was a message that there is a high polling turnout in Muslim dominated constituencies or areas, specifically Seemanchal. So that led to decline of NDA even in Yadav dominated constituencies. 55
NDA or
Yadav
MGB? Was it, you said NDA, decline of NDA in those or MGB?
decline of
Sorry.
MGB, yeah, decline of
Right.
MGB. So the NDA won 39 out of 55 Yadav dominated constituencies. The NDA won 29 out of 42 Muslim dominated constituencies. Of course, there's an overlap here. Some seats are common.
Right. You've, I think, given a really good outline of what really happened, especially the fact of the arithmetic that you talked about. And the moment you add the LJP votes, automatically you're getting 5% more as compared to what the BJP and the NDA got last time, 38%. And then you're adding on the women's vote, giving it 2%. So you're seeing the differential of that 46, 47% that ended up, the NDA ended up, based on also the other two caste groups that join the NDA and a more cohesive alliance that's there. But interestingly, and I'm going to come to Amitabh Srivastav on this, is that in the beginning, it didn't seem so evident. Everybody talked of the NDA having an edge, but never something that of the kind of landslide that was there. And a lot of it, as you had pointed out in the report that you've just done, is that the entire backroom management that was going on, the war room that was there, and a top BJP leader told India Today about the four-pronged strategy that the NDA adopted in Bihar. And before I come to you, Amitabh Srivastav, I just want to talk about these things and then you can elaborate on it. The first part of it was to build and deepen communication with allies. That is a very, very important thing. They realized that the coordination wasn't that good, so they moved out and deepened that whole process, kept in touch, unlike MGB, which we saw a complete disconnect towards the end of it, and a lot of sulking going on because of the seat sharing, and including about 11 seats where there were rivals, friendly rivals contesting an observed term of that. The second strategy that the NDA and the BJP adopted was to expand its reach to newer bases so as to create a larger social rainbow. And Amitabh Tiwari talked of that, which was to get the LJP in, as well as the Kushwahas and the other constituents that they had earlier. The third was to ensure a higher turnout of their support base, not just for party candidates, but also the allies. That's very, very important. The BJP wasn't just trying to get their cadres to come out and vote or their supporters. They also ensured that there was a great coordination with their allies, and the flag that they flew also had the allies' flags going in most of their rallies, so the recognition factor was very high and they did it. And the fourth was to use Prime Minister Narendra Modi's image to highlight the alleged misgovernance of opponents while also promising better efficient delivery. I would add a fifth that Amitabh Tiwari talked about, which is the fact that Nitish and the whole Jungle Raj business that he, compared to what he was projecting, the alternative was somewhat concerning for the voters who thought of the Jungle Raj that was there, and a certain gratefulness that was there for Nitish for this enormous progress he has made in the state in the last 20 years. So that's it. But Amitabh, while the numbers tell one story, you've reported from the inside the war room. How early did you see the BJP leadership realize that this election would require a different level of micromanagement?
So the NDA actually won because they got almost everything right. From the arithmetic of seat sharing since the beginning, when the elections were announced, or even before that, to the chemistry of winning hearts through this 10,000 rupees scheme, promising security, safety to the women, and also a promise of equitable distribution of justice and the government's largesse. Then, of course, the most important factor that one of those most important factor that these people very effectively communicated was stoking just enough fear, and then of course mastering every inch on the ground. The victory was not an accident. The NDA executed it almost flawlessly, and then as we spoke about it with peak efficiency, it kept on increasing the way elections progressed. It was perfect seat mathematics, emotional messaging, calibrating fear, and then the ground game that they simply never slipped. From the beginning, the BJP got to know that Nitish Kumar had a decent credibility, and here Mahagathbandhan, which did not collapse, they did not collapse. They, in fact, if we talk about the vote percentage of RJD, they were 23.11% in 2020. They were 23% this time. So they did not collapse. But this is just not enough because they stagnated. In 5 years, if they are still there where they were, then that's not good enough for an election where the number of voters have gone up by 7.7 million.
I
So
just wanted Amitabh or the Srivastav that, in terms of when did it actually, the war room that you were, were able to get information about, how did that
Right.
function? What was the kind of efficiency that was functioning? And give us
So
some
that
examples
was
of that.
right. That was function. For instance, I mean, from the beginning in June this year, the BJP divided Bihar into 5 zones, and then they deputed organizational secretary Pravasi Prabharis from different states because they did not want the element of bias to creep into their decision making. And these Pravasi Prabharis were told to stay in the zone, keep on the coordination going on with the candidates, the voters, the booth committee members. Then there were the mandal committee. Then there were at the constituency level. There were the different coordination committee at the Lok Sabha levels. So everything worked like various cogs in the machine and working in perfect synergy. This was one. At the political level, they have a different team which started talking to the allies. Like Dharmendra Pradhan himself spoke to Janata Dal United. There were other people who spoke to other parties. And unlike other elections or earlier times, or unlike what happens in other alliances, what BJP actually did, that they not only selected the constituency but also suggested and in fact insisted, put their foot down in some cases, that if you want to contest this particular assembly constituency, you need to have this subcaste of candidate. We don't really bother about who actually you are trying to put. For instance, Upendra Kushwaha wanted his wife to contest, then the BJP selected the constituency saying that she must contest from a Kushwaha dominated constituency. And then of course at the more micro level, what exactly they did, that they decided that the three other parties like like Rashtriya Lok Morcha, like LJPs, these symbols are not really directly connected with that of the BJP. So they asked the BJP people to go into that area and take out motorcycle rallies, and then there was certain, no gutka chewing kind of a directive that you need to stand, appear absolutely different from the boisterous crowd of RJD supporters. You need to be decent, you need to be communicating, you not be shouting, and you need to walk and take out rallies with these flags of the lesser known parties. For instance, on 18th of November, 3 days after the results were out, Prashant Kishore came out and started who held a press conference saying that nobody knew about the Madhubani candidate. Nobody knew about the flag of Rashtriya Lok Morcha in Madhubani. He said with greater authority that he has some feedback saying that people did not know about it. But perhaps the feedback was a week older than what he perhaps thought. because people knew that flag with a gas cylinder over it. That is the flag of, that is the election symbol of Upendra Kushwaha's party, and this is what all the BJP men were moving with. So they were able to instill that particular image in the eyes of the voters, and who were absolutely willing to support this NDA for other reasons as well. But in
Yeah.
terms of strategy,
I'm coming back to you. I'd like to bring Amitabh Tiwari in this, and we'll come back to strategy. I think you gave a real, micro view of what was happening and how the BJP turned around this election. And this is something I wanted to talk about. When you take the macro view, Amitabh Tiwari, you've been tracking this poll right through. I think you had given, right from the beginning, the NDA an edge. A lot of us felt that Tejasvi had started getting the momentum when he was nominated as the chief ministerial candidate for the MGB, but that seemed a bit late. In your perspective, what was the time when you really began to see the tide shift dramatically in NDA's favor? Because let's not forget, there was anti-incumbency, and people could have, we saw that in Odisha, where Naveen Patnaik was voted out of power despite being extremely popular, and people are really grateful to him for what he did in the last 20, 23 years. But that didn't seem to impact Nitish, that anti-incumbency that was there. And if you take a look at the fact that the JDU was unhappy with the kind of seat sharing that happened with LJP getting the prominence. Remember, last time it was LJP that led to the poor sort of showing of the JDU. And yet, when did you begin to actually see the tide begin to change in NDA's favor? Dramatic, I mean, the kind of size that you saw.
No, so it was not evident on the ground. See, it was always a very close contest on the ground. And even if you see BJP internal estimates, the agencies which were working for the BJP there and had estimates of 144 to 151 on exit poll number, and these numbers I am saying are exit poll numbers, taking the midpoint of what they had projected. Of course, the increase in turnout and this significant number of women turning up in higher numbers on the day of voting, but that happened on the day of voting, and the numbers that exact numbers of what percentage of women turnout is higher than males, that came on the night of the second phase of election. Correct. So I mean, because all other things were anecdotes that people are turning up in large numbers, but the ECI established it only on the 11th night of the second phase of polling at 9 p.m. But you see how the tide was shifting. I think in the earlier one we were discussing that after the voter Adhikar Yatra, the Muslim community, there were seeds of discontent amongst the community because no top leader was there on the campaign vehicle of the voter Adhikar Yatra. So that seeds were sown very early. And the fact that the Mahagathbandhan did not announce a deputy CM from the minority community, and OIC lashed onto it by that meme or that tweet which he shared, that also changed the game, at least in Simanchal, where he continued to win, or he won at 5 seats, pushing Mahagathbandhan to the third place. Correct, because again there, Purnia was the zone where the Mahagathbandhan was expected to gain.
Right.
That that division of votes happened. Secondly, this fear of Jungle Raj. The three bottlenecks of RJD were expansion beyond MY, fear of Jungle Raj, and that symbol is does not relate to modernity. This lantern symbol somehow.
Right.
They've not been able to communicate how a lantern today is still relevant in today's world. How so they've not been able to do that. So they got a chance when there were spate of incidents in Patna and elsewhere, but at that point of time, the SIR was announced and the entire opposition was diverted to SIR. So they got a golden chance to erase this stigma of Jungle Raj. Even television channels were continuously debating about this topic and even putting tickers as Maha Jungle Raj. And you
Right.
saw Congress and the RJD coming aggressively on channels discussing NCRB data, etc. But that
Right.
entire momentum lost and they shifted to SIR. When
Right.
when Tejasvi realized that SIR perhaps is not the issue which is resonating on the ground amongst the swing voters or NDA voters, resonating amongst their own core vote plug does not lead to additional votes. Correct.
Right,
So he came, and I think he came unprepared and announced this Sarkari Rozgar Yojana.
right.
So what it did is that it dented perhaps the credibility of Tejasvi Yadav amongst the youth. It was getting traction amongst youth. This haphazard scheme without any blueprint, base, or financials backing it somehow created this confusion that maybe he does not have the ability or the credibility to build a new Vihar or solve the issue of unemployment. He is not perhaps talking sense. Correct. He tried to
Right.
strike emotional chord, but youth is also very educated. I mean, people understand all these things, and the announcement of course, Mukesh Sahni only as the deputy CM. The Muslims again were angered, but even this scheduled caste community. So we have to expand beyond MY. You needed EBCs and SCs. EBCs, you tried to do that with Mukesh Sahni, but Mallas are not undisputed leaders of the EBCs because EBCs is a very fragmented community. Secondly, by not announcing Rajesh Ram as the CM face, or rather, sorry, the deputy CM face, that pocket of the Ravidas community, which is higher than the Paswan community actually in
Right.
Bihar, that they were not able to consolidate behind themselves. Even Rajesh Ram lost. So I think these two, three things
Excellent.
perhaps.
No, no, no. Just to bring back to the ground level truth that was happening, Amitabh Srivastav, I want to get you into at this time. While we saw the macro analysis that's there, if you take a look at what happened at this war room that was there, it was not necessarily just a room. It was, as you mentioned, at hotels where Amit Shah spent late nights, very late nights, reviewing everything. Apparently, he has this fantastic memory. He has no papers, and he's very blunt in terms of what he does. What did these meetings teach you about the campaign's nerve center? What were the kind of big messages he was getting across on this?
These meetings were like not only the nuts and bolts, but also gave the kind of a strategy and the execution. As we mentioned, no gap strategy. So there has to be a planning and then the execution part. And I mean, will be. I was really surprised when I was told about all those details that this person is talking about not only the booth committee members but also the in charge. In every booth, there were a booth committee, but in addition to them, there were one person who was in charge of two booths, and these two booths were the entire assembly constituency for him. His job was to oversee how effectively the booth committee members are talking about. And then we talk about even more at the micro level. Suppose they are going out to a particular family which has 5 votes, they're taking down their phone numbers, their names, and this additional person, that was his job to keep an eye on whether this particular five member of the family has come and voted. If they have not, they'll receive a phone call even before a day. So that was that a micro level execution of the plan, which was conceptualized in the meetings of Amit Shah. And I was told that this person, as you rightly pointed out, has a massive, very sharp memory. He was not sitting with any laptop, any file, any folder, any pen or something. And there were questions and answer sessions. Questions like, if the processions are going out, are the people absolutely disciplined who are taking out these processions? Booth committee members have received the materials or not? Now the Union Home Minister is talking about booth committee materials, which is a cap and a gamcha and a notepad and a pen and all those details. So, and I have been told that in Purnia, when Amit Shah was there is a gentleman who has done some maths, and he was known about that he has done maths about all those constituencies in Purnia. And Amit Shah summoned this person, had a conversation with him for 30 minutes, and he was allowed a selfie and things like that. So he went into the real nut bolts of elections, from planning, execution, and of course the no gap strategy, that everybody from Vinod Tavade and if Amit Shah was the general, then these two people were the generals of the two of the general, like
Dharmendra Pradhan also. You're talking of
exactly,
Dharmendra
Dharmendra
Pradhan.
Pradhan
And
and Vinod
from that
Tavade.
side, Sanjay
Right.
Jha of the JDU, they were
Exactly. Yeah,
coordinating it.
they're
Right.
coordinating Sanjay Jha and JDU. Now, for instance, in Rohtas district, no BJP candidate was contesting. The seats were given to the alliance partners. But still, Dharmendra Pradhan was there talking to his men, executing strategies, and figure out how exactly these campaigns are going on. So, from those hotel room in Patna to the every booth, every nook and corner of Bihar where the BJP people are working at the micro level, that if you are contesting against such a massive machinery which is so determined about execution part, then you have to have something which Grand Alliance didn't really have, which
Good
is
point. And
the biggest
I
reason.
want to bring Amitabh Srivastav, Tiwari back onto this. You had talked, Amitabh Tiwari, of the fact that when you looked at the opposition strategy, one of the things that you mentioned was that they came out with a promise that never looked like being fulfilled. Whereas the NDA smartly came out with this 10,000 rupee and the whole plan for women, the Jivika women and others, and actually delivered the money. And there was a promise of more, whereas this didn't seem doable. And in fact, the NDA kept their promise to what Tejasvi had said last time, which was to give 1 million jobs that was there. And so their promises were credible. I want you to come in now in terms of the opposition collapse. What was the real reason? Was it rival candidates that we talked of earlier, low cohesion, poor booth management, in sharp contrast to what Amitabh Srivastava was talking of the NDA and the BJP's election machinery? Was that a factor? And the second question was it true that actually close to 42 to 42% of the voters decided in the last 3 days? And if that is true, then what was that deciding factor? What tipped it towards that side?
No, essentially, if you see, even 3 months back, when we were discussing that on 3 points: coherence of campaign, CM face, and issues about ticket distribution. Even
Right.
NDA was facing issues on ticket distribution and the CM face. But as Srivastav ji said, on the coherence in the campaign, that was visible even 3 months back. Single template of poster of NDA with Nitish and Modi's photos and a common slogan. Whereas across Bihar, you would not find a Mahagadbandhan poster. You would find a Tejasvi Sarkar poster. So that itself speaks volume. That's number one. Number two, when I spoke to some Congress people who were working on the ground in Patna, after they left the meeting, I was really amazed as whether they are fighting in alliance or are fighting in opposition. The level of animosity which had percolated down to the booth level between the Congress and the RJD was amazingly high, because the Congress was adamant that Tejasvi should not be declared as CM face, because while it consolidates MY, it also puts off the other caste groups, largely the SCs, EBCs, which they want to add on, and which Congress is the only player in that alliance which can add these EBC, SC votes to this alliance.
And if I could interrupt you at that point, your own study shows that the
Yeah.
SC didn't vote as much as they did in the Lok Sabha for the Congress this time. In fact, the NGB got very low votes. You can talk about that. Yes, go ahead.
Correct. So the Congress party plays the role of a softening partner in the Mahagathbandhan, because it brings the poor, the SCs, the marginalized sections. The Congress strategists had not even read the manifesto. I'm telling you with a lot of in responsibility.
Authority.
Yeah. So this was the level of miscommunication or break of communication between the RJD and the Congress party, and at last the Congress left it to the RJD to contest the election. To be fair to Congress, we were considering Congress as the weak link, but here the captain of the team itself has not performed. It got 23% vote share, but at a time when the opposition party is increasing the vote share by 2.5%, this holding on to the vote share does not fructify much in terms of seats. The
Correct.
RJD lost battles even against LJP, HUM, and RLM. Leave JDU and BJP. So they had pocketed the easier contests, 30 out of 42 versus LJP, HUM, and RLM, and all the parties had an upper hand against the RJD in these seats. Whereas the Congress party was given 61, was fighting on friendly fights on 9, but was given 50 seats to contest versus the BJP and the JDU. This was also a point of discontent between the Congress and the RJD. 30 of those seats were never won by any Mahatmandhan partner, which the Congress was given. So in the end, and we saw Rahul Gandhi and Tejasvi not campaigning on the
Right.
together after the announcement of Tejasvi as the CM candidate. Even RJD insiders said that to neutralize this 10,000 rupees scheme, and since women factor had become such a big factor, it would have been better if Rabri Devi was announced as the CM face. And I'm saying with a lot of authority and responsibility here. Correct. So these factors worked. And as you mentioned about the Dalit vote, now the Mahagathbandhan got traction amongst the Dalits largely because of this Constitution Khatre Mein Hai campaign,
That's right.
Jodo Yatra of Rahul Gandhi. But the switching of LJP to NDA added that 5 to 6% additional vote share across the state of the Paswan community, and the non-announcement of Rajesh Ram as deputy CM did not give confidence to the 5% Ravidas community. The BS done well because that vote is actually an anti-NDA vote. Some
Correct.
went to BSP, some of it went to Mahagathbandhan. So I think as a unit, the Mahagathbandhan lacked coherence, and that's what also perhaps has led to a lesser vote transfer between the alliance partners because there was
Interesting.
distrust. The Congress wanted to establish itself as a player also in this election because the Congress was very clear that if it's a NiMo election and we are showing it's Nitish plus Modi, then it was equally a Tejasvi plus Rahul battle from Mahagathbandhan.
Well, to coin what they call it, the Nemo, it was neither Tera nor Teri in this particular this thing. If you're saying Tejasvi and Rahul, they didn't seem to click, nor did the women come for them to help them out in terms of votes. But coming to Srivastav, you talked of the optics earlier, where you said that Gutka was being banned on rallies that were there, and their rallies were more restrained. The NDA rallies, there was less slogan hearing, in sharp contrast to the sort of jungle Raj image that the
Right.
MGB had, and these were more orderly and disciplined. What I wanted was to look at the Sangh cadre. Apparently, the RSS had activated its cadres right across the ground, and they were the ones that were doing a lot of the booth information that was coming, the feedback loop that was there, so that they were able to make real-time decisions, not just through spreadsheets and others, but also the feedback they were getting, and therefore the shift in strategy. One of the big shifts, as we saw in the middle of the strategy, was initially they were ambiguous about Nitish Kumar becoming the chief minister, where people were saying, let the MLAs decide. And suddenly we see, after Tejasvi is nominated as the chief minister of the MGB, a virtual saying there's no vacancy for the chief minister. So was that largely because of the feedback coming from the ground and the role of the RSS in terms of the way they handled, as we saw in Maharashtra and Haryana, reinvigorated BJP because of that?
Absolutely, yes. So it was a bottom-up feedback. When Tejasvi Yadav was declared the chief ministerial candidate, I mean, as Mr. Tiwari very rightly pointed out, that it was a question of credibility and also the narrative of Jungle Raj. The emergence of Tejasvi Yadav as the chief minister actually gave the BJP an opportunity to drill in the Jungle Raj narrative even more strongly and effectively, because there is a large section of people in Bihar who would vote for anyone but RJD. And Tejasvi Yadav's biggest handicap was that he was not able to shake off the tent, or the so-called tent, which people are actually associating RJD with. So the bottom-up approach, or the feedback, the people from the ground actually let the BJP leadership know that when Tejasvi versus who, if you really make it a Tejasvi versus Nitish Kumar elections, then it will be easier said than done. It will be it will be much easier than what it appears if Tejasvi versus who. That was one reason why from the beginning, Amit Shah was talking about the MLAs would decide about the person who would be the chief minister. But then, on by the end of October, Amit Shah started talking about in public meetings and rallies everywhere that there is no vacancy of the chief minister. There is no vacancy, as there is no vacancy of the prime minister. And not only Amit Shah, every NDA ally, Amit Shah's words were definitely the most important ones, but also all allies, like somebody who was antagonistic to Nitish Kumar in the past, like Chirag Paswan. He started touching Nitish Kumar's feet wherever they were sharing stage. Nitish Kumar visited his house on Chhat. So the narrative was clearly and communicated, conveyed very clearly to the people that this NDA is absolutely one, and they were able to stoke fear of Jungle Raj very effectively. When Prime Minister started talking about Katta, people, in the Grand Alliance ridiculed him. People questioned his. How can a Prime Minister speak like that? But the fact is, what the Prime Minister said about Katta actually,
Better
created an
define
impression,
kata for a South
reminded
Indian
people. Yeah,
South
quantified
Indian
that.
viewers.
Absolutely.
Just
That was a very
talk
powerful
about what
campaign.
kata means.
Katta is, of course, a country-made gun, sir, and which
Oh,
is
okay.
associated largely, ironically, still with the jungle land narrative. That was one of the time Bihar had. I mean, even now there have been questions of gun running, but Katta is inadvertently associated with that particular era. So
Okay.
that is inevitably associated with that particular era.
Got
Katta is
it.
a
Got it.
country-made gun.
Got it. Yeah. Coming back to you, and this is the final round, Amitabh Tiwari, of the questions. When you look at two things, I wanted to get you to answer. One is, we often say elections are won in the last 48 hours. Do your turnout patterns show a decisive NDA push at that particular time? Was there a big switch that happened when this was there? Answer that first, and then I'll ask you the second point. Tiwari, for you.
No, see, essentially in Bihar, if you see on an yeah, in
Yeah,
Bihar,
go
if
ahead.
you see on an average, the others 20 to 25% vote share across elections. This time that number is 16%. So the elections became bipolar between the RJD led Mahagathbandhan and the BJP or the JDU led NDA. That led to a higher turnout because both the alliances supporters felt that there is a chance of the Mahagathbandhan for the largely the MY bloc and the upper caste SC ST and the EBCs that the NDA is likely to win, and it's a tough competition. So this Kati ki takkar narrative from both sides also helped NDA, I would say, because it helped them have
Please
a
define
higher
that term
turnout.
that you used. No, you better just explain the term that you use.
So Kaante ki takkar contest means that the contest is too close to call. Now, what it does is that it keeps the cadre, the leaders, and supporters on their toes. So there is no room for complacency. The Jivika Didis were used very systematically to ensure that the women who had enrolled as Jivika Didis or had got this 10,000 rupees come up in higher numbers and vote. Even in the banks, I have heard that there were separate queues for Jivika Didis when the amounts were disbursed so as to ensure smooth withdrawal and so that they do not face issues. So both the alliances had kept their cadres motivated and charged. Elections became bipolar, and in the end, even a section of others or a section of voters who were likely to vote for Jan Suraj, because their campaign withered and Prashant did not himself contest, neither Jan Suraj produced any manifesto, which was very surprising. That's why I think a section of people who were veering towards Jan Suraj moved back to the respective camps, largely to the MGB and the NDA
Interesting.
in the last.
I'm going to come to my final question to you, but before that, I want to bring in Amitabh Srivastav. One of the things this victory has done is that the fact that last time Nitish Kumar was able to use the kind of numbers that he had along with RJD to continue to disrupt the BJP. We saw him switch sides every time he was in control. But if you look at the current results, they have BJP has 89 seats, JDU has 85 seats, right? And the RJD doesn't have enough seats to cross that majority mark of 122 seats that we have. So does this mean, in your opinion, that Nitish will be more controlled? Slowly the BJP would assert itself at some point. Right now they can't, of course, move him out, or that was possibly one of the plans they had. But you would see a greater role for the BJP. They will demand more. They will make sure that they move in, or they will play caution for a while. What is your reading?
So to begin with, the BJP is definitely trying to back Nitish Kumar and give the impression that, and of course he is the chief minister, so he'll be leading the government. But yes, the constitution of the house is so that there is very little possibility of Nitish Kumar switching sides, or at least even use that kind of subtle leverage that he had in the previous house. At 74, Nitish Kumar has a legacy, and perhaps he also understands that this is the time for him to deliver. I have been told by people close to him, people who are talking to him, saying that, of course, he's like off limits to media, not really talking. But people who are talking to him and close to him, they're talking about that he's really humbled by the amount, by the magnitude of the victory, and he's saying that this is the time for him to deliver. Coming back to BJP, yes, they are. This is the first time in Bihar's history where have they emerged single largest party post election. So that way they have done even better than 2010, when they were, although they had a greater number, 91, but they were not the single largest at that point in time. Right now, BJP would gradually assert their agendas. They have two deputy chief ministers, and quite surprisingly, they have okayed their names only because Nitish Kumar also wanted the status quo. So, in times to come, I don't see any switches in next couple of years, or maybe in months to come. But yes, BJP will start expanding their footprints. They have got Ram Kripal Yadav in the ministry, the man who was a former state minister, the man who defeated Lalu Yadav's daughter earlier and then got defeated in 2024. So this is for the first time he is the state minister. And through him and other Yadav's leaders, when RJD down in the dumps and electoral dumps, I mean, then they will definitely try to, assume or at least usurp up the kind of political space that the BJP has, and then the political space that the RJD has, and then BJP can go for a final kill in 2030. As of now, I believe they will be strengthening their alliance, the governance, their agenda would be there, and yes, they will be growing in confidence and stature as well.
Tiwari, final word to you, and this is looking ahead. What are the big takeaways or lessons that you would take from the Bihar elections as we move to the next big state elections in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and other places, where I think Assam as well? What would be the NDA strategy? What should be the India alliance, if it still exists as it is? What should they be doing, and what are the lessons they can take away from Bihar?
No, essentially, even Bihar has shown that the normal caste theories have failed in this election. So the hold of caste on particular communities, or rather seats specifically, has reduced. So it's largely back to development, delivery, and issues. So wherever the regional parties or the India bloc, let's say, is in power in these four states, they have to deliver, because governments in power cannot promise. They need to deliver, just like Nitish did. When they realized that they are facing anti-incumbency, scheme after scheme for each cohort or voting segment was announced. Senior citizens, laborers, women, farmers, youth, etc. For the opposition, let's say the BJP in opposition in Bengal or vice versa, the Congress in opposition in Assam, they need to come up with very defined blueprint of what they are going to do. So for a Congress in Assam, let's say, how is the Assam they are going to build will be different from what the Assam today is under the BJP government. Or how is the BJP going to build a different Bengal from what it is currently under Mamata Banerjee? Because just raising issues does not help. People know about all these issues. What is the solution? People are more concerned about tangible solutions and credible solutions and a roadmap of bringing
Very
about
good.
political change.
Very good point. And what we've heard today is a rare convergence where the numbers and the narratives align perfectly. As Amitabh Tiwari showed us, the NDA's landslide wasn't just a statistical sort of outlier. It was the result of deliberate vote consolidation, strategic caste recalibration, and a remarkable surge among women voters, apart from the fact that he says what he ended up with saying, that the caste calculus actually begins to diminish after this elections and development and delivery becomes one of the key things. Amitabh Srivastava's reporting revealed that electoral story was built almost brick by brick on the ground through meticulous booth-level planning, war room discipline, alliance management, and a deeply networked organizational revival that left no gap or unplugged at all. Together, they tell us what Bihar 2025, that it wasn't a routine election, it was a masterclass in political coordination, a campaign that fused data with discipline, strategy with execution, and optics with delivery. Whether this becomes a template for the future or remains a Bihar-specific phenomenon is something only time will answer. But a big thank you to the two Amitabhs, Amitabh Tiwari and Amitabh Srivastav, for their insights and clarity. For more details, you can read the in-depth cover story written by Amitabh Srivastav in the latest issue of India Today. It deals in depth with not only what are the challenges ahead for the new government there, or the 10th time that Nitish Kumar has been sworn in as Chief Minister, and the NDA government that he's going to run, and also looks at the war room strategy, more details of that. But thank you for being with me in this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Until then, stay informed, stay curious. Nothing But the Truth.